people often look for quick fixes, and one of them, in my mind, could be, do we have a long enough parliamentary term? Total declaration of interest here. When it went to referendum in 1990, I voted for the 3-year term. I spent a lot of years in opposition. I always found 3 years quite long, and 4 years would have been water torture. And as a PM, I found that if you knew what you were doing and got cracking, you could get a lot done in 3 years' term. And I think we did get a lot done. But it's come back round again. Should there be a 4-year term? I sometimes wonder if MMPs change things fundamentally, that we have perhaps fewer of the long-term parliamentarians like myself, who are the backbones of governments and come into government with experience and ready to run. Certainly, apparent in parts of the current government, but that's not unique to it. So, Jonathan, would you like to opine on this? Do you have a view?
Well, I do, Helen, and let's just put the context in here. From an international perspective, the current parliamentary term in New Zealand is relatively short. Most democratic countries have either a 4 or a 5-year term. Some of those are fixed terms, some of them are flexible terms, some of them are semi-fixed. So we are, relatively speaking, unusual in having only 3 years. That is the case in Australia and some of the states in Australia, but in most parts of certainly Europe, United States, and so on, it's for the president, it's 4 years, and in some countries 5 years. I have long supported the idea that having a slightly longer term, 4 years, would be preferable, on the basis that would provide an opportunity for better policy development and implementation, particularly in dealing with very big policy issues, like, for example, resource management reform. But I've never taken the view that a 4-year parliamentary term would make a huge difference to the way our democracy operates. And I'm very mindful that there are arguments against a 4-year term. As you say, Helen, if you're lumbered with a bad government, it's a long time to stay. There's also the risk, of course, of really bad things happening, and a lack of sort of checks on the executive. So my view would be, if we were to move to a 4-year term, I would want to do that in the context, first of all, of having either a semi-fixed or a fixed term, which would reduce the capacity of politicians to call early elections to suit their particular convenience. But secondly, in the context of a wider parliamentary reform. And exactly what that should be, I appreciate it's open to debate, but I've long taken the view that we have a parliament that's too small and which is dominated by the executive. So when the opportunity arose for that review of the electoral system 40 years ago, the Royal Commission recommended a House of 150. If we were to adjust for population, that would mean having a House of around 200 MPs now. And that would put us broadly in line with the situation in countries like Denmark, Finland, which have comparable population sizes. The advantage of having a larger house means you'd have greater depth of capability and talent. It also would mean that we could have a more effective select committee process, which would hopefully provide greater capacity to hold governments to account, and also hopefully improve the quality of the kind of policy process. But the problem would be, I don't see much prospect of getting that kind of reform, Helen, and I somewhat despair, actually, at the prospect of significant constitutional change that could really enhance the quality of our democracy.